Looking back, I realize my journey of becoming an educator began while working on my systems engineering master's degree when a couple of my classmates told me that I had the ability to put the cookies on the bottom shelf. In other words, I could grasp complex concepts and explain them. Reminds me of a quote that is often attributed to Einstein. He said, "If you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it." A few years later, I had the opportunity to go back to my alma mater, the United States Air Force Academy, to teach engineering. I was taught how to teach, and then I practiced it for the next 3 years. When my wife and I started having children, we decided we would homeschool. So naturally, I was the math and science guy. So when my oldest was a junior in high school, I said, "Hey Josh, let's do physics." Well, my lovely bride, not wanting anyone to be left out, asked if I would mind if she told some of the other homeschool families that I was going to teach physics so that they could send their kids to study with me rather than having to do it themselves. Well, I ended up with 14 kids in my living room. Well, I kept going the next year, and the next year, and the next year. And about 5 years down the road, I learned that a few of my students had gone off to college at LeTourneau University, which is known as the Christian Polytechnic Institute, there in Longview, Texas. I thought I ought to get to know LeTourneau, just in case any of my students asked me about the school. So I found the phone number, called them up, and one thing led to another, and now I teach physics and engineering for LeTourneau to students around the U.S. and around the globe. Another step in my journey to become an educator began when our former pastor of our church launched an online seminary called Grace School of Theology. For their accreditation, they needed somebody with experience and credentials to teach a science course. So now I teach physical science to undergraduate seminary students all over the planet. Through Grace School of Theology, I had a unique opportunity for teaching. This was back in 2018. I ended up teaching physical science and communication skills in Kathmandu, Nepal, through a translator. How cool is that? So in my ongoing journey, I recently spent 1 year teaching physics at a private Christian school that's in the Dallas area. Man, aligning with TEAGs and working through the challenges of the COVID pandemic taught me many, many things that don't show up in a syllabus. Yeah. Another important part of my journey has occurred in the last few years. I've tutored hundreds of high school students from public schools. I find a great joy and satisfaction when working with a student and then you see the light in their eyes come on when they truly understand. I found that it's good when the first time I meet a student that I explain to them that I'm not their teacher. I'm not assigning grades. I'm not giving tests. In fact, I need you to tell me if and when you don't understand something so I can teach it to you. And you know what? Every time I do that, I can see their shoulders relax and learning begins. Also, I've discovered a phenomenal synergism between teaching and tutoring. Because I teach, I know the material when the students show up for tutoring. But as I work with each of the students, I reinforce what and how I teach the subject, and oftentimes I find new ways of explaining and teaching the material, which I then take back into my own classroom when I teach that subject. It's this continual improvement in action, and it's great. Oh, tutoring has humbled me. I used to think that just because I presented the subject matter to the student, that student actually understood it. I've learned that is a dangerously arrogant perspective, and I work very hard to never make that assumption. And the journey continues. Through a network of introductions, I now teach at Hartwell University, teaching the next generation of teachers. What a privilege. Periodically throughout the years, I've taken spiritual gifts assessments, and teaching consistently, appears at or near the top of the list. And not too long ago, I took a class in homiletics, The feedback from the teacher for every assignment was invariably, Walt, you're a teacher. Through it all, I realized that I am a continual learner. I remember walking down the halls of the Air Force Academy during my junior year and realizing that I had learned so much since leaving high school. But my very next thought was, I've only scratched the surface. Einstein put it this way, the more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know. Now, I would add, which inspires me to keep learning. I love to learn and to pass what I've learned on to others. And one of the best ways to keep learning is to teach. Another way is to formally go to school. And one day, I hope to get a PhD in natural theology from Oxford University. But even then, it will be just another portion of the journey of me becoming an educator.